of A Superwoman Handbook. We are welcomed here today with Crystal. She is a medical mom warrior. Yes, and I know there's a lot of other medical mom warriors out there dealing with stuff with kiddos. You're trying to balance the doctor visits, balance the billing, balance the what is going on with this, and having someone in your corner to help you understand all of it. We have Crystal. So, Crystal, thank you for coming today.
I'm super excited to be here.
Give us a little bit of background. How did you become a medical mom warrior? What do you do? And how do we work with you?
This job becomes something out of necessity. So, a hot minute ago, I was in a car accident, had a traumatic brain injury, and figured out the hard way. We just don't teach advocacy skills. We don't teach how to make a name for ourselves with the doctors. We think that we just have to follow their advice, follow the dictates, right? The mandates. And we don't realize that we don't have to do that. And sometimes we can get better care when we do make a stand for ourselves. We also have to research the things that they aren't researching. So that led me down a different avenue. And out of that researching led me to some experimental studies that today are very commonplace, like neurofeedback. I was one of the very first people to receive neurofeedback, trying to get my own help. And then from there, I ended up with a kiddo after 10 years of infertility that, God bless her, just came into the world on her own and in unexpected ways and with unexpected fun. And 28 diagnoses later, we are walking a medical mom warrior path that I never saw coming.
Love that. So, one of the things you mentioned when we were kind of doing our pre call was that you can fire your doctor. And it blew my mind because, here we are in, a country of excess, a country of doing what we want, when we want, at a microwave like speed. It never, I guess we just hold such a reverence for those in the medical field that how dare we question what they say. And then upon that dare, how dare we double dare tell them to kick rocks and go somewhere else. So how would you coach someone through who might be thinking, yeah, I need to tell my doc to kick rocks? Kind of what's a good way to do that and not get absolutely annihilated on the way out?
Share a little story with you. I think the best understandings come through visual storytelling here. So we had just moved from Colorado to Virginia, and kiddo at that point only had 22 diagnoses. And we had to get to a GI. This GI tract issues kind of encompasses about four of her major issues. And so we went to a local facility, and in what I do to prep that, now mind you, I'm a little further down the path than maybe some of your audience is, but here's a tip for you. You can call the front office staff and ask to speak to the office manager and say, hey, this is what my kid or I am enduring. And I want to make sure before I even waste your time, my time, the copay time, all of that, to even get on the calendar 12 months from now, because that tends to be in my arena how far out the appointments are. I want to make sure that this is a good fit. Can your provider even handle this? Is it something that they know? Not something that they've read about. That's really important because oftentimes they'll go, oh, yeah, I know about it. And they're Googling it right before you walk in. That does not ever work for me or my kid. Too many complications. So I often ask them, what have they learned about it? What certifications, what trainings have they gone through? And the office managers are usually pretty good about knowing that data. And if they don't, they'll go off, they'll have those conversations, and they usually call me back. That happened to be one of these conversations. We went in, I let them know. I'm like, hey, very medically complex. Here's the cheat sheet, which is another thing. If your audience wants access to cheatsheet.medicalmomwarriors.com, go get your cheat sheet because this has saved us more times than I can count. It's free, but I sent that over to them ahead of time. And I said, hey, please look through these ongoing issues. Let's make sure this is a fit. She did. She came back to me. She said, I talked with the provider. We're good to go. Great. Made the appointment. That appointment happened to be 6 months down the road. And so we got in there and walked in, and you can tell pretty rapidly when a doctor has not read your chart. Why are you here today? That question alone begins to make my blood kind of percolate. And my child over here, being hard of hearing deaf, who was not given the ASL interpreter because no one told us we could request one yet. We now do that for every office visit. That's another tip and tool. And then also, she was having a really struggle that day. It was just a really off day for her. And so when he said that, I could just see her visibly shut down. And I went, oh, this is not going to go well. I said, have you had a chance to read her record? Well, no, we don't have time for that. I
Yeah,
said,
that's
well, that's
6 months.
interesting because I'm pretty sure I had a conversation with your office manager who assured me whoever we saw was going to read her record. Well, what do you want from me? I said, well, I tell you what. And I'm thinking in my head, not one iota from you today. Not one. I said, well, since we're here and we've waited 6 months for this appointment, and obviously your staff did not do their job to adequately prepare all of us for this appointment, I said, here are her list of issues. And he just cut me off on issue 3 and said, we don't deal with those. We're a bread and butter GI. About this time, my child is like flying on text and my phone's blowing up and I know exactly what is happening behind the scenes. And I'm like, I just held my finger up to her and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is not a fit today. We will not be requiring your services. And I fully expect that your office will not be charging our insurance today.
Solid response. Okay, another thing I didn't know I could say. I'm not paying for this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you have done your job to prepare for that appointment and then they come in and they haven't done their job, it's kind of like, to me, in my mind, a fraudulent credit card charge, right? You order the dress and you order it in a large and it comes in an extra, extra small, like for like an elf,
Uh-huh.
right? And you're just like, no. So you send it back, but they don't want to give you the money, right? And you're like, no, like this doesn't work that way. And so I do have those conversations. Now, am I successful every time? No, I'm not. Unfortunately, because we saw that doctor one time, they have deemed her to have coverage in the GI department. And so that kicked us out of referrals for 4 other referrals that we've been trying to get. We still, as of today, just had another conversation with a major provider 3 hours away, and they still had it on the books that she had coverage. I said, no, she has never had coverage since we have moved to the state. In fact, I've told your office that. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, which is why every time I drive 3 hours, I walk into your office to have this conversation again. Yeah. So it's not always pleasant. It's not always easy, but you do have to stay the course. Today, I finally got to the actual overarching director of the GI department at the facility we're trying to get her into. If she doesn't come back this week, we're going down to Duke. And, that's another tidbit for your audience. I will have to cross state lines, and she has Medicaid, but there is an agreement with Duke and Johns Hopkins for Hampton Roads, Virginia, because you can go to either one. And supposedly, I do say supposedly because we haven't tested the theory yet,
Yeah.
they are supposed to cover it because it's a coordination of care that you cannot get in the local area. So just a couple of different things in there, just in that one story alone, that I would really encourage your audience to take notes about, because you really don't know what you don't know until you're sitting right in the middle of it.
That's so true. And kind of sitting to your point of sitting right in the middle of it, how did you come to sit in the middle of medical mom warriors and create your network and your group? And kind of tell us about it. If someone's like, oh my gosh, I need that. I want that.
So I really thought that I would just share information along the way, right? And that's what I did for probably 20 years. Like, oh, well, if you're going to go over to that, you should look and ask these questions. And I would just give the information. And then in 2020, when the world was blowing up, I had actually signed up to kind of build an email list. And I was like, what do I really want to build this email list around? I'm like, well, I already give out all this information. I could just do it for everybody, right? So I set up my first summit. God bless my child. In the week that I was supposed to run that summit, she decided to start dancing in her living room, kicked up, fell on the floor, and couldn't feel from her waist down.
We've all had that night.
So that led to 9 months of her not being able to feel from the waist down. That's when I learned we have 2 sets of nerves that run down our legs. We have the movement And the feeling ones, you literally could have taken a knife and stabbed her and she wouldn't have felt a thing. It was crazy.
Today's years old, I learned that too. Okay.
Right? I had no idea. And so somewhere in there in one of the hospital visits, I had pushed the summit twice and I was finally like, I pushed these major speakers that I was having speak. There's 11 of them. I'm like, I just got to run this thing. Well, in running it, I was going to offer this coaching program right at the end. I'm going to give you a little background information for those of you who think coaches have it all together. No, we don't. And as much as it looks nice and professional, no, we pivot on dimes often. So in the middle of that, I went, I can't coach these people. I don't even have my act together. I can't do that. So I didn't, but I gave them great information and we had 335 people register for the event and they gained so much wisdom and knowledge. It was a fabulous event. And so I just kind of sat on it for another couple of years and I'm like, you keep bringing this back to me. Okay, I know I'm supposed to do it. What does this look like? So then I had another summit. Guess where I had it from? Another hospital room.
I mean, that almost makes it authentic. I mean, you know what you're
Oh, it did.
because you're summiting from the scene.
It was on the job training. I get a lot of that. Absolutely. And, from there, we did a holistic toolkit and it was so funny. Again, pivot on a dime. All these cool things that I had in the holistic toolkit that I thought everybody would want. They all wanted interestingly enough, the most expensive gadget that was in there. And I'm like, well, okay, sure. We can do that too. And that's what we do because as medical mom warriors, we know what we need in the moment. And for me, I want to help you get stability as quickly and as efficiently, as easily as possible. And so that's what Medical Moms Warriors really became was what do you need? What is your customized need for medical stability? So we have a conversation about 90 minutes. I find out what those needs are. I put together a plan of attack from all the resources and tools that I have, which are about 400 of them now that I've accumulated along the way. Some have cost to them, others don't. But it's up to you as a person that I would have a conversation with. Which ones you want to use, which ones you don't. And I get it because medical moms and chronically ill are typically trying to survive, right? As much as we want to say we want to thrive, we do. We all have the goal we want to thrive in as easy of a life as possible. Well, God said, take heart, I've overcome the world, right? Because we're going to live in the chaos in a very fallen world. And so because of that, medical moms will spend a lot on credit cards to keep their kids alive, me included, because we know that's what's going to help our child the most. I know another medical mom, she has spent, I think they've gone down for 3 rounds of stem cell injections into Mexico. And each time that they go, it's like $15,000 just for the injections. And so she fundraises. As soon as she has it, they go and she gets the next round.
So help me understand because I've not, thank God, never had something to that degree that I couldn't just go to CVS and get a prescription for. When do you kind of graduate from getting your care in the US under health insurance to getting a ride to Mexico with some cash in your pocket? How does that happen?
To be honest, it's you putting your researcher hat on, having conversations like this to learn what other options are available out there. When you begin to search, a great example of this would be an old movie called Lorenzo's Oil that I would encourage your audience to watch. Fabulous, amazing movie. And the young man kept having these very specialized types of seizures. And his dad began to do the research. Now, these were old day research before we had Google and chat and all these other fun things. He was living in a library, talking to the scientists, bioscientists, all these chemists. And he figured out this oil that he could produce out of these plants actually helped his kid. For him, he created the solution. And that's what we do as medical moms, medical parents. We look for the solutions. Today, I do in air quotes on purpose, it's easier to find other solutions because now we have the web. And we have conversations like these. And we have all of these other websites that kind of make these redirections. And we have TikTok and Facebook and ads that pick up on what you're researching, even though we don't want them always listening.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's helpful, right? And then they begin to bring you the information as well, which is great. One of the classes that I taught was how to leverage AI for your medical needs. And the people that were in it were like, I had no idea this could be useful for us in evaluating patterns and understanding what else is out there. What are the academic journals? One of the major Christian singers, his name was Carmen, and he came down with a super rare version of cancer. And it was like one in, I'm going to say like 7 or 10 in the whole world had ever had this. Well, in his research, in what he could find, he flew to Switzerland. They saved his life. It was some experimental treatment in Switzerland that saved his life. And, when we look at all of these tools, and that's what they are, they're not cures all the time. And I say all the time because I do think sometimes the tools that we use do some things that could make it not come back, right? We have to be very careful when we're talking about medical information. Everybody's listening. So there are no cures other than pharmaceutical. Yeah, right. I'm going to cheat there. But take, for example, let's talk about COVID for a second, right? You had these frontline providers. I don't know if you remember that story, but there were about 50 to 75 of them that shared some very holistic tools they were getting very successful results with. And then you have a whole group of people who are trying to shut them down.
Yeah, story old as time.
hmm Yep, pretty much. In fact, that's where actually pharmaceutical came from. Actually, it goes all the way back to the Rockefellers. And, before the Rockefellers, we actually had the indigenous people, we had the herbs, the plants, the gardeners, and oh, you got this kind of thing? Okay, I'm going to go out in my garden. I'm going to pull this weed. I'm going to make this concoction. And you take this 3 times a day, it'll be gone in 3 days. And it was. Because we used what God provided and intended for us to heal our bodies.
Yeah. So let's say that I'm a mom and I just got home with a kiddo with a leukemia diagnosis, and I'm spinning because I work full time. I have another kiddo. My husband, our marriage is already on the rocks because we're not having quality time together because I'm so busy with the kiddos. The house is a complete train wreck. I can't even do laundry, so I'm just ordering new underwear off Amazon every other day. And I call you and I say, Crystal, what do I do tomorrow? Kind of how would you help a mom in that situation?
To be honest, the first thing I'm going to do is pray with her
I love that.
because we are spinning so bad and we're overwhelmed by what we're dealing with. And it's going to be new vocabulary. It's facing no matter what they say. The minute you hear cancer, you think death. Like they go hand in hand. Doesn't mean death, but you think that, right? So it's super important whenever anybody gets a diagnosis. You take a breath and you deliberately in that moment say, I'm not going to partner with that. Because our mindset will absolutely determine the outcome of what we're about to walk through. And that's not always easy, especially when it's about our kids. I even remember seeing the MRI and seeing for myself the subdural hematoma on the bottom of my head. And at that point, I didn't know what I know now. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Like, this is bad. And I didn't know how to handle that back then. And nobody around me knew how to handle that because we live in a fear driven society. Oh, you have cancer. That must mean you're going to die, right? Pancreatic cancer and lung cancer are two of the most extreme cancers. Okay, but that doesn't mean you have to die from them. And so if we can begin to understand God says he heals. That doesn't always mean on this side of the eternity. It could mean on the other side of eternity. And again, and I'm not saying that there's a cure all for everything. What I am saying at the point that we can take control over our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, conscious and subconscious, dreams and visions, under the rule and reign of Jesus, we're going to have a completely different outcome in the journey that we're about to walk. So the first thing I would do, let's pray. Let's bring it before him. Let's surrender. Let's cry together. Let's get it out so then we can move forward, right? The first step to healing, even when it's your kid, for your healing is giving it to him because we don't know everything. And as much as we want the doctors to know everything, they do not have a flippin' clue. They just don't. Take menopause, for example. 50% of our population, technically, I think women are 63% now. Well, let's just go 50-50. 50% of the population, out of that 50% population, 100% of them are going to have menopause. Surgical, induced, or natural. It's going to happen. And yet it took till 2024, 25, 26 for people to catch a clue that happens. And maybe we should help them. And maybe we should send some money to research for that. Like, you know, that just goes back to what has been researched is not always helpful to us living the life that we have to live, right? So the next thing I would do for that particular mom is hear honestly, how are they living life right now? How can we put some supports in place that is going to help them emotionally, physically, mentally, financially to get them where they need to go? Because as you said in your example, there's this other kid in the family, right? That other kid becomes invisible. And that's a huge issue for them. And so we not only have to support you as mom, if dad's in the picture, dad, your marriage, your understanding of how to interact with both kids, how to handle both kids, how to handle the office, the work, right? I really encourage everyone to look at the Family Leave Act. They now have many of them as paid options, which should have been gazillions of years ago, really. It used to be 12 weeks. I think we're up to 16 now. If you're in Europe, you get like 30. It's like pretty amazing. And they pay you at the full rate. It's kind of crazy. Oh, imagine that. Anyways, we'll just leave that right there. The other thing is to learn how to put apps on your phone. GoodRx, any of the Mark Cuban discounted medical drugs, because you are probably going to have to buy some to get your kid through. But then also look at the holistic. Like, if I could encourage your audience to do one thing sooner, faster, is don't dismiss the holistic. Get your feet in now while it's not an emergency. Learn about red light pads. Oh my gosh, those things are revolutionary. Like, I live with my red light pad. I ate something 2 days ago and I'm like, Katie, get the red light pad. And I'm laying on the couch, like, put my red light pad on. Hour later, it's fine. I mean, that red light pad is amazing. And it doesn't hurt anything. And it's only going to help bring oxygen to whatever issue you have going on. And it's going to promote healing. Grounding mats are another one. You can get grounding sheets, grounding mats. I mean, those things are amazing to just discharge, the free radicals in your body. And it's just like you walking on a beach. There is a lot of scientific proof to this. It's called earthing. And then, let's talk about different tools that help your body realign and reorganize. God designed it to work. Now, what we put in it, what we do to it, tends to create some chaos, right? We will not talk about my sweet tea over here. But there's activation patches that I firmly believe in. We use those. There's some other patches that are out there that have kept me walking for many years. And then I do get the question. I have had the question, and I've had people very upset with me say, well, you have all these tools, but your kid's still not healed. That's true. So let's talk about that. My kid also is very angry at God right now for 28 diagnoses. And these are not light diagnoses. She's had Lyme not once, but twice. 5 different variants of it. Her latest is reactive hypoglycemia. We went in for a blood clot. We came out with something completely not even on the radar. And I'm like,
The bingo card.
that should be on nobody's bingo card. And so then we have to fight for this Dexcon thing because she has Ehlers-Danlos. So it's connective tissue issues. So she's steady pricking her fingers to figure out why she's going high and low. And reactive, you have huge ranges from like 50 to 200. Whereas with diabetic, you can jump and you can go low, but it's not this valley constantly. And for reactive, it's a valley constantly throughout the whole day. And so her poor fingers, like within a week, were purple from pricking 5 to 7 times a day. So we put in for the Dexcom, which is a unit that goes on your arm and it's constantly tracking your hills and valleys. We had absolutely no idea how bad she was until we got the Dexcom. Nobody had ever caught it in the history of this child. And we're like, how did they miss this? So great. We didn't have a blood clot, but holy moly. And crazy thing is, no one could tell us what doctor to go see because of it. Rheumatology says endocrinology. Endocrinology says, oh, a GP could just follow it. The GP's like, oh, no, that's not in my wheelhouse. No, nope, not touching that one. I'll put in for the Dexcom, but only because you've done all the research and you know what you're doing. And that has truly, now we're back to less catnapping. So as a medical mom warrior, let's talk about sleep for a second. We don't get any. It doesn't exist. So we are on hyper alert, hypervigilance all the time, right? So my kiddo is about to turn 21. She's literally, her room is 2 feet from my room. Literally 1, 2, that's her room. Okay. We live in a 1-story, no stairs, because she had 2 major ankle reconstructions this past spring. So we live in a rental 55 plus community. Oh, here's a great tip for your audience. You do not have to be 55 to live in a 55 plus community that has all the grab bars.
They carded you at the door, like, you
They
gotta
don't. They have to, by law, 18 and over. Now, you can't live there with your kid unless they're 18. But by law, they have to give 10% of those to 18 to 54.
interesting.
Had no idea.
Me either.
By fluke, I call one of them up. I'm like, hey, so I'm going to be 54 this year. Is that close to 55? But can my kid come with me? They're like, well, how old is she? I'm like, oh, she'll be 21 this year. He's like, oh, yeah, she's over 18. No problem. And in this community alone, I think it's more like 40% are 18 to 55. So it's quite funny. So we have all these lovely grab bars and we can request all this ADA stuff. And we have visual smoke alarms because she's deaf, hard of hearing. I mean, it's great. It's what we need, right? It's brilliant. All inclusive. So you're not having to pay this bill and that bill and this bill. You pay one bill and it covers all of those. Now we do have to pay our internet. But that's
Heaven forbid.
I know, right? My whole $30. And oh, by the way, did you know that you can get an ADA if you're disabled? You can get a reduced rate on that and your phone.
Good to know. Okay.
If you have Medicaid, which a lot of your audience, if they have kiddos on Medicaid, even my kids on still on Medicaid, you actually can get a lifetime pass to the national park for free. If you have a disability, you can get into tons of museums by just showing your Medicaid card for $1.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many opportunities that exist because of that. And if you are on SNAP, if you're on Medicaid, you can get reduced Amazon Prime. You can get several other streaming facilities reduced. Netflix doesn't play anymore. They just said no. So, but Disney Plus, you can, which now owns Hulu, Verizon, T-Mobile. What's the other third major? It used to be AT&T, but I forgot what it was. I think T-Mobile owns AT&T. Which one?
Spectrum?
Yeah, Spectrum is one of them. Comcast is another one. But yeah, just ask. I mean, that's the thing. And the first answer is typically no. I'm just going to let you guys know that. Because most of the time, the representatives don't have a clue it exists. And you go, I tell you what, could you pull up your handbook? Could you pull up your supervisor? Because we're going to investigate this. Let's learn together. We do a lot of that learning together thing.
I love that's such a great way to phrase it too. I love that.
Yep. And then you're not putting them at unease for not knowing. And you've got what you need. So those are just a couple of the ideas. And then after I pray with her and we talk about different opportunities in those categories, let's get some of that established while we're talking right now, because that's what happens. You have these great 90-minute sessions, you give them this plan of attack and they leave and they're completely overwhelmed. And so I found, nope, we're going to sit here right here together while you make that call, and then I can answer questions for them.
I love that.
Because I found they don't know the scripts, right? And not one script fits all, it doesn't. But there are certain things that you do want to be able to say in certain circumstances to get the effect dealt with. There's a great influencer out there right now. He's a white gentleman with red hair, red beard. He's a nurse. And it's usually like him from here up. And he gives you different tips to actually how to problem solve different things in the hospital. And one of the things that I did not know until I moved to the state was you can actually disagree and appeal a discharge. So I had no idea. I was in with my kiddo. We did not know at the time why she was having this pus and stuff coming out of her ears. We thought it was allergies in the area. Evidently, you should never move to Hampton Roads if you have allergies because it literally is like two of those dumb zones on top of each other. And Hampton Roads is number one spot in the whole United States. It's horrible. And then Richmond's the other one. So don't go there either. And both of them are in the same state. I'm here because I have family here and I need to be here for them right now. So we don't have a choice to move. That's okay. We're going to get through it. But we didn't know why this was happening. So it was happening so much that we thought the bone is beginning to erode in her jaw. So she's impatient and they just want to get rid of her. They're like, oh, she's got stuff coming out of her ears. We're like, dude, she has a super bacteria that you have now tested for that I can't even pronounce. That's 27 letters long and requires a IV antibiotic. And you want her to leave the hospital? I am not equipped to be a nurse. I am not a nurse. We will not be sending her home with an IV bag. Not going to happen. And if some of your audience are CNAs, and I think at times our federal government thinks caregivers all are CNAs for some reason. And even CNAs cannot give IVs, by the way. A lot of them don't. A lot of people don't realize that. But it's very important that you know your boundaries of what you can and will not do. And I do phrase it that way on purpose. I will not be giving my kid any shots. One, they'll probably kill her. But two, I'm not going to give her an IV as well. Some of her IVs have taken 4 hours to get in because of the amount of scar tissue that she has. And that was with an ultrasound machine
Yeah.
and a special. And he even had to stop because he didn't know what else to do for her. And so he said, I tell you what, I'm going to go get dinner. I'm going to let you guys enjoy some jello and let's reconvene in 20 minutes. Yeah, my kid can't stand jello now. It's quite funny. And so we came back and he got it in just like that. But everybody's systems had to just calm down, right? Because when our system is like ramped up, we're in fight flight because it's our kid. When my kid's laying in the floor and telling me she's, she can't feel from her legs down. And I'm like, crap, I can't lift you. I will literally throw my back out if I try right now. And I'm calling her dad, who's an EMT, going, she's in the floor. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get her into a car because that's where my brain's going. Like, I got to get her into a car to take her to the yard. Like, call 911. You don't think through all
You
those things,
don't. Those
right?
are
In the middle of it. But we back to the discharge. I did fight that. And she did stay another 48 hours. And at that point, they figured out a pill version of the antibiotic that she could have. And we tested it. We always have to test everything with this kid. And I felt better about leaving. But absolutely, you can appeal a discharge. And that nurse who had shared that on one of his reels, that's where I got that from. So, sometimes as medical moms, it is just about the collection of information and dispersing it to those that you have access to.
comes back to what we always say, when you know better, you do better.
Absolutely. Great way to put it.
And this is just, I don't want to say random information because we should know medical stuff, but I kind of put it in that same category. Like, thank goodness I learned how to use a protractor. Comes in handy during tax season. I mean, it's just things that we should have learned, before this moment. So let's say that someone is like, yes, Crystal is my woman. I need her in my corner right now. Where can they look for you online? Or would you have a summit coming up? Kind of what's going on in your world?
Well, definitely download the cheat sheet. That'll put you into the system and let's connect because that's going to help you initially and quickly as possible. If you go to just Medical Mom Warriors, you're going to see other books that I've been in with other tips and tools, as well as other interviews that I've done. You'll pick up resources every time I give a talk. It's always different. It's the funniest thing. I'm like, I should just collect all the talks that I've given and just push the book out. But ultimately, getting into the system and getting that cheat sheet, I'm going to be alerted and I'm going to reach out to you guys. Because what I found is if I can, one, find out how I can pray for you, that's going to be the key. So I'm going to send you a welcome email, welcome to the community. I'm going to attach that cheat sheet there for you in case you missed the download button, because sometimes we do that, especially when we're like, I can't see, I'm so tired, right? And so I want to make sure that you have that. And then I want to find out how I can pray for them, because if you can have somebody come alongside of you, man, now you're not alone. And especially when you're one medical mom to another, instant camaraderie. Like, you totally get it. In fact, one of my good friends runs a low vision clinic out in Colorado. And she called me in the middle of the day the other day, and I'm like, this is like her busy day. What's happening? And so she goes, hey, I have somebody standing in front of me. She's got to talk to you. She's a medical mom here. Okay. Hi, how are you? How can I help you today? So, and it was so funny because that little phone call has resulted in several conversations. And not only that, her daughter and my daughter have now connected and they've got support. You know, we often think that we have to be everything for our kids. And really, if you haven't walked this journey yourself, I know about this much because I walked it from a brain injury standpoint. I'm a 4-time cancer survivor. Like, I can do it from this side, right? But I wasn't a kid when I ran into all those. I was a married adult. And so my kids going through it, and we would ask for support groups over and over and over again. No one had any. We offered to host them. They wouldn't let us. So ridiculous. So by the time we came to a place where she was willing to do it herself, we moved. I was like, okay, we'll just put it on hold. We'll do it when we get there. We haven't done it yet. But those kids need support. I want to break a big myth right now about resilience. The latest book that I'm going to be in this summer is actually about stories of resilience. As adults, I think we can appreciate resilience and that bounce back effect, right? I absolutely despise when it's attached to a kid. Kids are so resilient. No, they're not. No, no, they're not. It's called adult trauma from having to be resilient as a kid for whatever they walked through. And that could have been family dynamic, that could have been abuse, that could have been medical, it could have been the sibling of the medical kid. Right? There was a book called My Sister's Keeper, I think it is.
I was just thinking about that. I read that. Yes.
Yeah, that was a powerful book, and I think they made a movie, and now there is a more families choosing to have second, third, fourth kids to save some other
Mhm.
kid. It's the whole reason they're having them, and that just brings up a whole nother conversation. We won't tap that one today, but and then there's the conversation out there right now of, would I have done something different if I had known my child was going to have 28 medical diagnoses? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, because there's that couple, that influencer couple that just aborted their baby, and it has definitely set the internet on fire.
My parents, I'm going to share this publicly. I have had phrasing of it to several people who have talked about that story, but let's just talk about it in reality. So, my parents, God love them, when they come together, they don't make beautiful babies. They don't. They make babies who have deformities, fins for arms and legs, Down syndrome, and it's more than just T21, it's other genetic issues as well. Just the way that they came together was never a good thing. So my mom had 6 pregnancies, and I had an older brother who was full term stillborn that you could clearly see. Now, mind you, I'm 54, so this would have been in 1970. They didn't have ultrasounds until 79, and they didn't have amniocentesis and all of those things. Okay, so they don't know. You got pregnant, you had the kid, you know whether you're getting a boy or girl right when it comes out. And so he was stillborn, full term, and it would not have gone well. Okay. That did not stop my parents. Then they had me. I got arms, I got legs, I got a brain with an IQ that's a little higher than the average, and and I'm fine. Now, not sure my kid would agree with that, but I'm fine, right? Fine. And I have lived life as it is and gone through the hurdles of my traumatic brain injury and cancer and several other things along the way. I do have something with my bones that was part of what my brother had. And it's in the family of the osteogenesis imperfecta family. There was a movie about it called Shattered. I think it was Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, I think it was him. And if you touch a bone, it breaks. I had the very mild version of it. And I would just keep tearing ligaments off of all my bones growing up. So I was always in a cast. So from there, my mom got pregnant after me. And that was Kimberly. And she lived 3 days, looked exactly like my brother, passed away. Did not stop my mom and dad. She had another one and she fell in the bathtub and the baby came out at 6 months. Would have looked the same. And then they got pregnant with my sister. And she was the very first ultrasound in New York City, actually, which was kind of cool. And with the doctors having so much advancement, they knew what she had experienced, what had happened. And they're like, okay, we want you to go home and have a glass of wine every single night. Let's just. And in that moment, that was their version of let's calm your nervous system. No, I'm not saying alcohol does that. I'm just saying that's what they thought.
Okay.
Okay. So she had my sister. You'd never know it. Like, does my sister and I both have ADHD? Oh yeah, off the charts, off the charts. But both have. We're fine. My sister's had 2 kids, and I've had Katie, and all of these things. And so, could they have done those choices along the way? Could they have stopped having children along the way? Absolutely. Do I know for a fact we are living miracles? Without question. My child's dad shouldn't have been here. He was a preemie twin, and Duke Medical Center saved their life. They were born, I think it was 2 or 3 months early. And so they lived in the NICU, and those were the 2 kids that they had. And so when I got pregnant, we were very concerned, right? We had dealt with 10 years of infertility. Getting pregnant in itself was totally a miracle because both my tubes were totally closed. And then I got prayed for. And then 6 months later, I got pregnant. It's totally a God thing. And so when we did get pregnant, they wanted to do the amniocentesis. And I said, nope, not happening. I said, whatever this baby looks like, acts like, it is already a gift. This is literally the dream, and God has provided the promise. Doesn't matter. I will love this child no matter what. Now, what we didn't know was her dad, well before we got pregnant, in the military, had gone through 3 rounds of the anthrax shots. One of them was very tainted,
Didn't see this coming. Okay.
and it actually changed the RNA and DNA of what he provided at conception. And we actually can link multiple of the things that she has back to that genetic remodification before we got pregnant. There's a whole book around that. Bax A for your military audience. You will learn a lot. So, to the ultimate question, I have a kiddo with 28 diagnoses. Has she asked me why we got pregnant? Like, why did we do this to her? She has. Very angry about everything she has to walk through. I know God has her. I know that He loves her more than I ever could. Know there's a testimony here that she's struggling to see right now. But the amount of people who have found out about celiac, autism, Ehlers-Danlos, reactive hypoglycemia just in the last 6 weeks, the amount of people's lives that have changed because we share the stories, and she allows me to do these. Like, I'm not sharing anything that she would be upset about. And of course, that could change tomorrow, but today we're good. And she shared them. Like, just in having those conversations with that new friend, she has friends in Italy and Bulgaria and random places all over the country and all over the world. And they talk and they have formed their own support groups online because they don't want to be by themselves. But getting out of the house is super difficult for chronically ill. They have to cancel a lot, you know?
Days, like you kind of touched on it earlier, that are just not good days. And you can't really forecast it. And you maybe have been looking forward to this trip or this camp or this ice
Yep.
skating event. And you wake
Correct.
up and your body's like, "Girl, we ain't doing that today."
That is absolutely true. Or your mobility aids shift. So, people often laugh at us because we have to have 3 bedrooms because the 3rd space is all her medical equipment. We literally have this IKEA thing and all the drawers and all those kind of things, and then we have the medical, so she's got the walker, the rollator, the wheelchair, what does she call the, Lofstran crutches? Fred and, Ethel, I think is what she calls them. And then now we have the knee scooter from the last 2 surgeries that, we have all the things, the toilet riser and the adjustable bed frame and, all the things. And so I laugh because there was, a period of 2 years in Colorado. I had 4 different friends have hip surgeries, and they would all call me for all the pieces that they needed to.
Library, instead of the little library on the corner, you're the medical, equipment lending library.
You can have it unless she needs it. If she needs it, she gets first priority. They're like, "Yeah, we totally got it." It was the funniest thing ever. Oh my god, yeah. So, you just never know, but you have to live life with laughter, and you have to realize it's not the end of the road. It's not the end of life, back to your original question of what else would I say to that mom? You do have to deal with your own expectations of what life looks like. I never expected my college age daughter to be online fully doing college 2 feet from my room. I never expected her to be graduating in December early,
Yay.
which is a huge event. She has had a massive major surgery every single semester she's been in college, and she's still doing it. One step at a time. Some days are better than others. Have we failed classes? Yep. Yes, we do not care about the GPA. We were like, we care about the little piece of paper that says you
And
did it.
honestly, and that is so true.
And this ring right here is what got me through my traumatic brain injury because I could not wake up and know who I was, where I was, what my phone number was. Back then, you had to memorize all the phone numbers, right? I just knew I was safe. But I would look down at this class ring and go, okay, well, they can't take my bachelor's away from me. I may not have a clue what it was in. I may not be able to talk about it, but they can't take it back.
Take backsies. I love it.
So, sometimes we just have to find the diamond in the rough. And those expectations of what we thought life was going to look like for our kids do shift and change. And there's loss, and we do need to grieve that. I biologically will not be a grandmother because she had to have a hysterectomy at 19, but that's okay. God's already told me I was going to be a grandma when I was in the 6th grade. Okay, so it's not going to be biologically. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be a grandma, So it's up to him to problem solve those things. I just hold on to the promises.
Normally, I always ask our guests, what do you want to leave our audience with? And I think that is the perfect, kind of statement for someone to hold on to. That's a problem for him to solve. You just hold on to the promises.
And
I
that's
love.
where fierce hope lives.
Well, we will drop in the show notes all the contact information so you can find Crystal's site, you can find her tools, her downloads, her books. And I do hope that if you're listening to this and you hear yourself in her story, I do hope you have the bravery to reach out because I know sometimes it can be overwhelming and stressful because you then have to relive it when you reach out to someone for help. And we hear that from a lot of our ladies, whether they're reaching out for their own mental health or they're reaching out for their kiddo. It's just sometimes easier to just bury it down, go unload the dishwasher, go catch something on TV and move on with your day. But I do hope that if you feel led, you reach out to Crystal so that she can help you with your next steps because it is our journey here sometimes to be a mom warrior and you don't choose it but you find yourself in that path and let Crystal be an example of what a mom warrior looks like. I feel so empowered. I'm glad I've not had to play that role, but I love that we have a role model for us should we need to.
And I'm happy to be that in any capacity that they need.
Thank you so much, Crystal. And like I said, we'll drop everything in the show notes. Y'all have a good rest of your day. Thanks for listening in.
Bless